The Greenwich Show, in partnership with Greenwich Market, London's favourite arts and craft market. Series 2, Made by You.
Coming up on the programme, we pay tribute to the legendary and riotous Greenwich comedian who died 10 years ago.
Invented the term alternative comedy, which is sort of true.
We visit a restaurant in the borough that's been voted as the best in the capital.
They gave me the chance and the opportunity to be number one.
We explore the rich history of Eltham as we visit for our Hidden Villages feature.
And so for him to come to this theatre in this area was fantastic.
And a group of parents in the borough speak of their support for each other and how it helps get the best for their children.
Parents with children that are slightly older than yours are going through problems that you're going to come up against in the next year or so.
The Greenwich Show, made by you.
Welcome to the third episode of our current series, where we're looking at all things Greenwich. 10 years ago, in January just past, one of the heroes of British comedy left us. He made his name here, hosting what were quite legendary nights in what was then the Tunnel Club.
He gave many of today's best-known comedians their first break, and many others were broken here.
I'm talking Malcolm Harding.
People outside the industry don't know, but when he died, he actually got like virtually full-page obituaries in the Times and the Telegraph and the Guardian.
The general image of him being completely mad and unreliable, and he
was just so funny.
Malcolm's catchphrase is unrepeatable on television.
There is this thought that perhaps he might be the most famous comedian of the 20th century.
He employed lots of those up-and-coming acts that are now household names, basically.
His comedy was his life. It was said to have the most dangerous audiences in London, but I always thought they were firm but fair. They had a tendency, if they didn't like you, to show their non-appreciation, possibly by throwing beer glasses at you.
Tunnel Club was mad, surreal, anarchic, any of those phrases and more, basically. I used to sit at the back in the sound booth and observe what was going on, and I was overwhelmed by this feeling of sort of it was either at some sort of post-Holocaust cabaret or some sort of medieval jousting tournament. It was really, really innovative for its time.
It was known for its high quality of heckling, and one of the reasons for that is they were getting these £100,000 a year stockbrokers who would sort of heckle them in Latin and things like this. And there was one occasion, well, I think more than one occasion, where an act wasn't appreciated and they hummed him off. They just went, and it's very difficult for a comedian to actually get back at that. You can't really do a put down if the entire audience is humming at you.
Well, there we are, Sean Percival, and if you're not seeing more of Sean Percival, where are you going?
That's what I miss. The crowd used to go when an act wasn't going very well, which was normal, because they were an aggressive crowd and they would heckle you off. If it wasn't going very well, the crowd would go, Malcolm! Malcolm!
Malcolm! Malcolm!
like a sort of a child going, Mum! Malcolm!
The poor performer would be struggling and struggling to try and win it back, which once or twice they actually managed to do. But they knew then, and then, the audience would get louder and louder. He wouldn't be on their side, as it were. Oh, my poor performer being, booed off stage. He was not cruel, but that was kind of part of the game,
The other one.
wonderful evening, a cavalcade of comedy.
I would never have dreamt of opening up a club when Malcolm was alive, and it was years and years later after he left us that I thought, I want to open up a club that I want to go to, really, that I would like to attend. And it's ended up, very much, I've realised subsequently, a few years up the path, that it is very reminiscent of the Tunnel Club. We do love the difference and the surreal and the anarchic.
Malcolm is the sort of man that no one really forgets.
People thought it was very easy to do Malcolm's autobiography because he just told stories very well, but in fact he couldn't remember anything, so he not only couldn't remember exact details of things or which order they appeared in, but which decade they appeared in, he couldn't remember. So some of the stories in the book look as though they're just fluently told, but in fact he'd tell you part of the story, then 6 months later he'd remember another part, and then 8 months later he'd remember another part. And then you think, oh, that's a great story, but it can't possibly be true because it's so outrageous. And then you'd find 2 or 3 people who'd actually been there and would remember something even more outrageous he'd forgotten to tell you. At one point he'd actually been arrested in a hotel for being naked outside Michael Heseltine, the cabinet minister's room, in nothing but a raincoat. Special Branch didn't like this very much, and he'd forgotten this because it was just an ordinary day for Malcolm.
He also claimed that he invented the term alternative comedy, which is sort of true because we were down a place called Salcombe and the landlord called it the alternative cabaret because that night the local golf club was putting on a cabaret. So he called it the alternative cabaret, and I think Malcolm got the idea from that, basically.
Any gig that Malcolm ran was like no other gig somehow. Obviously a lot of that was just down to Malcolm's just natural manner on stage. It wasn't about the jokes he told, it was about the whole attitude to the evening of entertainment, and that just made every gig he ran different to a conventional gig.
Storm the world with a BA in theatre and performance.
Malcolm drowned about 10 years ago in Rotherhithe in 2005, and he wasn't really known by the public, but he was known by the industry and appreciated by the industry, not just the comedy industry, but by the media, the newspapers and the reporters and so on. And so I thought he deserved to be remembered because of his ability to spot talent, all the help he gave to the up-and-coming comedians at the Tunnel Club up the creek and at the Wibbly Wobbly after he left up the creek. And so I thought he deserved to be remembered for that. So I thought I'll start an award in his memory at the Edinburgh Fringe. Well, that's actually not altogether true. What I thought was, how do I get free tickets for all the comedy shows in Edinburgh for 10 years? I thought, I'll start an award, and therefore I'll get in for free, and I thought Malcolm would have appreciated this.
And now, another film made by you. It's about a group of parents who all have children with special educational needs or disabilities. They all help support each other so they get the best for their children.
I thought I was alone.
I think you can feel quite lonely as the parent of a child with a disability.
I could go looking for help and I didn't know where to go, and I was to go in the wrong places.
You can sort of tend to feel like the only one out there.
We are an independent group of parents of children with either a disability or special educational need based in Greenwich.
We tend to have coffee mornings on a regular basis. It's not in one particular area. We tend to go to various schools.
We exchange ideas and we give advices to each other, which school to go to, how to talk to the teachers, how you can find the social workers.
And the thing that stands out mostly is that the pampering carers spend all their time doing the sort of looking after. But when someone offers you a cup of tea or a cake or has made you a cake, it actually is quite pleasant to be on the receiving end.
You can relate with other parents and learn from one another in a private and relaxed environment.
What tends to happen is parents with children that are slightly older than yours are going through problems that you're going to come up against in the next year or so. So it's nice to find out sort of what's coming and how to deal with it.
It can be quite a maze, especially when you enter the school system, you know, finding out which way to go and what was the statementing procedure, and it just really helps to talk to people who have been there before.
It's not new to them, but they're telling you exactly how to overcome what you're going through. And it has really opened up my eyes to know that my daughter's got a future, that there are even other people who are going through what I'm going through.
This is the Greenwich Show. On the way, the next film in our Hidden Villages series, we take a look at Eltham.
I love Greenwich because there's so much going on here. There's always something to do.
The Greenwich Show, in partnership with Greenwich Market, London's favourite arts and craft market. Series 2, Made by You.
Now back to the Hidden Villages feature for this series. We're looking at all the small pockets of Greenwich that you told us about that makes the borough special. This week we're in Eltham with Phoebe Kibbe.
Eltham, regarded as one of London's 35 major centres. Originally on the main route from London to Maidstone back in the 6th century. Another place of the borough named in the Domesday Book of 1086. You won't be surprised to hear it's an area steeped in history.
And it's also an area full of green space, and our first stop off is Avery Hill Park.
On one occasion when we were planting some trees, we found a Mesolithic flint scraper. So that takes the history of people being around this patch until 7000 BC. Colonel North, who built this fantastic place you can see behind me, died in the late 1890s. So the good old London County Council bought it and began to convert it into a public park. The Winter Gardens is the second largest greenhouse, for want of a better term, the Winter Garden in the UK, after Kew Gardens. Avery Hill Park is the most fantastic place. You want to come and see it.
Our series of Hidden Villages picks out some of the borough's bits of beauty. And talking of hidden, there's this little gem of a building tucked away inside Well Hall Pleasance.
This is one of the key community hubs for Eltham. The Tudor Barn was built around 1525 by the family, the Roper family. Will Roper, who married Margaret More, who was the daughter of Sir Thomas More, who was the Lord Chancellor to King Henry VIII. And the Tudor Barn is what is left of the estate. Most of the building is in its original state still. We now call it Tudor Barn Eltham. We have a huge amount of weddings, corporate events, team building events. Because of the 13 acres of grounds that we have here too, it's a perfect location. And we have many community events here as well. We encourage the community to come down and to enjoy all the public events, the free events that we host here for them.
One part of Eltham is celebrating a centenary anniversary this year, and it's no coincidence that last year was 100 years since the outbreak of the Great War.
And so when the First World War broke out in August 1914, the munitions business just needed to expand like crazy. And there weren't enough houses in Woolwich for all the people, all the extra people that the munitions business required.
Every house is slightly different from everyone else. It's built on the old arts and craft movement, so there's lots of air and space between the houses. Every house has its own little garden.
My mother and father-in-law came here in 1915. He was drafted from Oxford to come to work in the Woolwich Arsenal. All the houses have changed. I mean, when we first came here to live, the bath was in the kitchen, the toilet was in the garden.
I'd like to think that it's a place that people come to live because they like what's here, and that once they got here, they just sort of remember that is why they moved here.
I think it's such a nice place, and everybody's so friendly. You know, you can't beat living here, really.
Down this street, you'll find the home of a community theatre company. And okay, the name does give it away, but the theatre was saved from closure by the actor, performer and comedian in 1981.
In 1943, Eltham Little Theatre was established here, of a flourishing amateur theatre group. It had a strong history for many years, but by 1979, membership was waning a little, and the lease for the building was due for renewal. It really looked as though Eltham Little Theatre would die. Bob Hope was born in Eltham. He left here when he was a toddler, but he's always maintained his links to his hometown, and he was very keen to help. Bob Hope was a major star, as he was until his death a few years ago, and so for him to come to this theatre in this area was fantastic. So we're very important, I think, to this community, not only in providing entertainment for them, but also providing an opportunity for many, many people to get involved in theatre.
So I think you'll agree that we found another little hidden village here in Greenwich, and this one certainly has its fair share of history.
One of the best things about London is its wide selection of cuisine. The multicultural makeup of the capital means that you can get food from just about anywhere, from anywhere in the world. One such restaurant in Greenwich has been rated highly. Very highly.
So if I was to ask you, what's your favourite restaurant in London, what would you say? Perhaps a Michelin-starred fine dining experience. Or what about a restaurant in a 5-star hotel? Or perhaps a local cafe? Well, the Blue Nile here in Woolwich was recently named the best restaurant in London by website TripAdvisor. It beat off over 17,000 other restaurants to get that top spot. So Stuart, the Blue Nile Cafe is actually an Eritrean / Italian cafe. Why did you decide to open here in Woolwich?
I used to own it as a sandwich bar, and things didn't work with the recession, so we decided to change it to a restaurant. And so we said Italian and Eritrean restaurant because we have a lot of influence of Italian in Eritrea. We've been living here for 32 years. There are some communities in Greenwich, but I think the Blue Nile restaurant, especially in Woolwich, is the first one in Greenwich.
So you've actually only been open for just over a year, but in that time you've been named the best restaurant in London. So how did that feel when you heard?
Well, the first day when I was reading my email, I usually wear odd socks anyway, but that day, even the worst one, I came to the restaurant with my slippers on because I was so shocked, and I thought, it can't be, we are number one. But I didn't do it only by myself. I think our customers, they gave me the chance and the opportunity to be number one.
I'm going to find out what the customers have got to say about eating at the Blue Nile.
We're not spoiled for choice for some fancy, nice places in Woolwich, are we? So this is great to have this place in.
Woolwich and Greenwich and Charlton are all changing, and Blue Nile is a fabulous addition to the area. Great food, great staff, and really good, friendly, family, welcoming atmosphere.
Now, I don't know too much about Eritrean cuisine. I've never actually tried it before. So I was hoping you might tell me a bit more about the flavours and some of the ingredients that go into it.
Okay. On our stew, it's not spicy, but it's well flavoured. This is homemade chili, and this is the butter, purified butter.
This is only we use it for meat. This is the only spice we use. It smells like pepper, but it's nice flavor. And this is shiro. This is only water, onions, and olive oil or sunflower oil.
Okay.
And this is we get only from Eritrea. But all our ingredients, the meat, everything we use it locally.
Yeah.
And some of the vegetables we use also from local allotment, which is also good for the local community.
Well, it all sounds absolutely delicious, so I think it's time that I tried some.
By all means, I'll go and get some for you.
But as they say, the proof is in the pudding. Before I try the Blue Nile's famous tiramisu though, I'm going to make a start on first course.
If you've missed any of the films of this series so far, or even the first series, they are available on our YouTube channel. We'll be here next week featuring some more films made by you. And in the meantime, if you want to see what's coming up, here it is.
Knitting isn't just about toys and blankets. Guerrilla knitting, which is a form of street art.
I know I'll always be able to use my skills that I've learnt here, elsewhere.
It was a bold thing to put something as modern as that into this very historic setting.
The Greenwich Show, in partnership with Greenwich Market, London's favourite arts and craft market. Series 2, made by you.